guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Rudy Elizabeth. I'm a grad school content creator here in Atlanta, Georgia, and this is going to be one of the most requested videos I have received over the last year or so that I've started my channel, and it is how I balance being a content creator, mentor, grad school student, working at just how I balance everything. So before I get into the video, if you would just go ahead and subscribe below, it helps out my channel a lot, and I would just love to have you guys here joining in on my journey. So when sitting down to officially start creating this video, I essentially asked you guys a few questions on Instagram, as well as I created my own outline of the video. And so I'm going to separate everything into 4 categories: school, content creation, working and volunteering, and then like self-care. So those questions will be in each section. And so let's start first with the most important: school. So first up in school, that helps me so much with balancing is organization. Organization is super key for me specifically. As you guys know, I'm doing a dual degree, so I'm not just doing my PharmD, I'm also doing my MPH. So organization is a very large component of how I not only balance my 2 programs, but also balancing content creating, meetings, working, holidays, being able, planning vacations, planning to see my family, planning date nights. So first up in organization is going to be some type of calendar. I particularly use Google Calendar as well as a paper planner. My Google Calendar, which I've mentioned in my planning video, have access to my university's Google Calendar they have set up for us. So today is Thursday, February 18th. So you'll see everything that is in purple on this main screen is everything that my university has input themselves. So this means that my professors, before the beginning of the semester, they submit their syllabus to our school administrator. That administrator inputs all of these important dates such as exams, SOAPy sessions, TBLs, classes, days where you don't have classes, stuff like that. So on today, Thursday, the P1s have a TBL in healthcare delivery and population. At noon, there is a SNAPA meeting. I actually am in SNAPA. So personally, what I do is I duplicate that and I add an alert. So you're not allowed to have an alert on the actual school one because it does not belong to you. So what I typically do is at the beginning of the semester, I will duplicate the events of specific organizations I am a part of, and then I set a 15-minute notification for before that meeting, because I'm in part of 3 organizations and I don't always remember what days they meet or which weeks they meet, so that actually helps me a lot. And then at 1, you'll see that we have cardiovascular renal disorders SOAPy session number 1. This actually is my class, so this is really important for me. So that is also in my Google Calendar. And then at 5 p.m. we have a ROCI group help session for the first years. Another day would be like Friday. So Friday, the P3s have an ID exam. There's some more meetings, and then the P1s have another exam. So that is how, like, a generalization of the Google Calendar. And that's specifically related to school. So you'll also see there are some other things in blue, because these are things that I personally add when it comes to volunteering and working. Number 2, my paper planner. So as you guys know, that my boyfriend gifted me the best agenda ever. It is this Harry Potter themed spell book planner, and it is now my lifeline. I write important things such as exams, assignments we are given that day, as well as, when I sign up to volunteer, when I have a shift at work. And I particularly like that in my paper planner, because when I'm in class, I do typically have my planner out right next to me, especially because if I start to fall behind, then I like to write a note to myself to rewatch a certain lecture or rewatch a certain portion of a lecture, or I might think of things at the time where I'm like, oh crap, I need to turn this in later. So I like to jot down those notes. I do check my paper planner every single day. So it's definitely beneficial for me personally to have my paper planner and my Google Calendar. All right, number 3 that helps me with school: I never pull all-nighters. They just do not work for me. I did one last semester and it actually ended up being one of my worst exam grades. So what works for me is being productive in the morning. So you guys will notice on Instagram all the time that I'm typically up at 6:30 or 7 just about every single morning. And that is what works for me. So This semester, all of my classes start at 1 p.m. except for on Wednesdays, they start at 9. So my typical routine on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays is that my alarm will go off about 7. If I have something extra to do, then I'll do 6:30. But my alarm will go off at 7, and I get up, I get a quick workout in, I clean my place, I do my cat mom duties, all that stuff, and then I make some tea or I make some coffee, and then I sit down at my desk for the day and I look at my planner. I look at my Google Calendar, see what there is to do for the day, and then I typically would do like a catch-up session. So typically by the time I'm done with the whole workout and morning routine, it's about, let's say, like 9:30. So from 9:30 to 12, which is when organization meetings start, I get to do note cards that I didn't get to finish the night before. I get to go over practice problems for calculations quizzes coming up. I get to go over our note cards for drug quizzes coming up. I get to go over previous lectures. I get to create study guides. I have these 3-4 hours sometimes of just dedicated grind time, and this helps me get ahead in the day. So that way when I go to class at 1, I have already looked over whatever we did in class the previous day, so that I'm already good to start on new material today. And then I don't have to play catch up and double back on 2 lectures. So as I mentioned, on Wednesdays, classes start at 9. So on Wednesdays, I typically get up at 6:30 and I get my workout in, but I don't typically have that time to do the whole catch up session or have a dedicated grind time. So I'll get up at 6:30, I'll get a workout in, and then I typically am back and sitting at my desk about 8:15, and class starts at 9. So typically during those 40 minutes, I just kind of look at my day, see what's going on. If we have a quiz, then I just quickly go over whatever I prepared for the quiz. Number 4, for school, I study just about every night. This does not mean that I'm studying 6 hours a night every night. This just means that I dedicate at least a portion of time every night to some type of studying. This can be by going through note card sets, going through practice quizzes, going through just the PowerPoint and getting rid of slides that I understand, or annotating slides to better understand them. This can be grouping my PowerPoints into little rundown sheets on my iPad with good notes. So studying does not just mean reading everything. It just means understanding your information. Every night I am definitely doing something in terms of studying. This is very important this semester because we actually have our cardiovascular renal disorders course every single day. So it's super hard to fall behind if I don't study every night or I don't look over the information every night. So this is a really good example of why I do that, because you might start one day on antiplatelets and the next day you're on anticoags. But if you don't really understand the platelet formation and all that stuff from the previous day, you're not going to understand anticoags. So that's super important. So for me, when we finished antiplatelets, I went through that PowerPoint and I got rid of all the extra slides, or I started making kind of like a guide and grouping the formation pathways together into a little sheet on GoodNotes. So I didn't necessarily understand the entire PowerPoint just right after that, but I have a good basis so that when I do go back to start anticoags, I can go back and pull from antiplatelets and I'm like, okay, I get what he means now. So at least dedicate, even if you can do 30 minutes, that's still important. 30 minutes of going through note cards or taking a practice quiz will definitely help you. Number 5, I'm definitely on the work smarter, not harder gang now. And so the best example for me is that there are several people in my class who also use the same note card style that I use on easynotecards.com. So if I'm sitting down and I'm about to prepare note cards, I personally will type in my class name and like the lecture, and I will see if someone has already made them. Why would I double and make the same exact note cards that they're making, So what I like to do is I will use their note card set, which saves me about an hour to 2 hours of creation time. So those 1 to 2 hours, I actually go through their note card set along my notes. And then I just make a little rundown sheet. So instead of spending 2 hours to recreate the same note card set, I actually have 2 hours of study time, really. And so I will use their note card set, make my own little rundown sheet, And then I also use those note cards as practice quizzes and stuff like that. On the other hand, yes, if they have not made them, I will go ahead and make them myself, and then I'll send them to my friends and stuff like that. Same thing with study guides. I have a close group of friends where we do send each other our study guides as we make them. So if someone has finished their study guide before I got to start mine, or I'm just now starting mine, I will not take the next 3 hours to continue making it. I would take their study guide and I would download it to my iPad, and then I go through it and I annotate onto their study guide what I, or how I understand things. Or if I specifically drew something differently that helped me understand it better, I just crop it from my PowerPoint and I add it onto that study guide. So that's another example of working smarter, not harder. There's no competition to make a better study guide or make a better note card set. Use the resources that you are given and just tailor them to your studying. So from the questions on Instagram, there was one question that fell into this category, and it was, how do you balance studying for midterms and finals? For example, what first, how many hours per subject, etc. So when it comes to finals, I really don't have a finals week. That doesn't exist in my program really. So like last semester, I had a final 3 weeks before classes ended, and then I had a final the week before classes ended, and then another final the last week of classes. So I don't necessarily have a finals week, especially in courses where we have one large course separated into 2 small courses. So I guess to make this more personable for me, when you say what first or how many hours per subject, I'm going to put that in terms of my upcoming final in cardiovascular renal disorders. So our final will be in early March. At that time, I don't believe I have any other exams, so I will most likely be putting 80% of my study time towards that. And then the other 20% will be towards if I have a drug quiz or a calculations quiz that week, but I don't typically measure my studying in hours. I typically measure my studying in tasks. So when I sit down to study, I write out a to-do list, specifically when it's like that weekend of the exam. So on Friday before that final, if it's on Monday, on Friday I write out every single lecture that is on that exam. So say there are 7 lectures that will be included on this exam, I write out all 7 of those lectures on a to-do list, and then I go through one by one. So I do a review of the lecture, so that either it means on my study guide. If I don't have a study guide, that means going through the PowerPoint. If I don't have a study guide, then that could also mean going through the note cards. So I review it once, and then I quiz myself using like either a practice quiz my professor has given, or my note cards on a quiz setting on easynotecards.com, or I kind of like do an active recall session. And so that's how I do that. So I'll go through review, and then I quiz myself. Then I go to the next lecture, I do the same exact thing, and then I go to the next lecture, I do the same exact thing. When I get to lecture 3, I will quiz myself over lecture 1, 2, and 3. And then when I get to lecture 6, I would do one big review and basically quiz myself over every single thing. So I don't measure it in hours, I measure it in tasks, or completing how I personally study, which is by reviewing first and then quizzing myself, then reviewing and then quizzing. And then also I make rundown sheets on trouble topics. So the next section is going to be very quick. It's just about working or volunteering. So as you guys know, I do work in a clinic. I love it there. It's amazing, but I have held other jobs while I was in school as well. So when I started my first year, I was working in the retail setting, and we were required to work at least 8 hours a week. So typically I found myself working like a 4-hour shift on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then a 6-hour shift on a Sunday. Mainly because they didn't let me break that up. They just said that I had to work that entire Sunday, which was 11 to 6. I can't remember, I believe. So that's typically what I worked my first year. So when it comes to working and balancing school, this is where my Google Calendar and my paper planner comes into play. I always, always, always triple check my calendar before signing up for any shift. What's super beneficial for me is that I am the only student in my clinic's pharmacy right now. So I'm their only intern, I'm their first intern. So it's very non-traditional. It's not one of the intern programs which have been established for 10 years where they have a specific set of rules that says you have to work 10 hours, you have to do this, this, and this. We are very open, we're very lenient, and that is very, very great for me personally. So I do not have a specific set of hours I have to work, but I do have a specific schedule that I typically stick to when it comes to being in school. So in school, I typically work Tuesday nights from 5 to 8 and Friday mornings from 8:30 to 12. And then once a month, I do have a Saturday shift, which is from 9 to 1 p.m., which is such an easy shift. All three of those shifts are so easy. I still get a lot of work done at the clinic, but it's nothing that is too busy for me. Also amazing is that typically my late shifts on Tuesday nights from 5 to 8, I typically don't see patients from 6 to 8, so I typically get to work on study guides. I get to go through note cards. I get to practice calculations. So that's an amazing aspect of my job personally, and which is also why I don't mind working during the week. Now, there are some times where I do end up being super busy during those late shifts, but I always bring my backpack to work no matter what, because I just like to take advantage of any type of downtime that is presented. The same thing goes for volunteering. When it comes to volunteering, I triple track my calendar. So this semester we are doing a lot of COVID vaccination clinics. So I do like helping out and I want to be a part of history. So like recently on this past Tuesday, I signed up to work a COVID shift at a local long-term care facility where we vaccinated, I believe, about 200 residents, which was amazing. And I signed up for an 8:30 a.m. to 12 shift. And all I had to do was triple check in my calendar that I didn't have a class during that time, make sure that there wasn't a quiz or anything, and then I signed up. So just keep in mind your Google Calendar and your planner are you definitely need to update those often so that you know the dates that you're available to work, the dates you're available to volunteer as well. So when it comes to weekend shifts, the important part for me is making sure that I don't have an exam on that upcoming Monday. If I do, I won't be too mad because it is a very small shift, 9 to 1. We probably are only busy from 10 to 11:30 when people are actually getting up on Saturdays. Other than that, we are not that busy. So I do still get some study time in, but I do like to make sure that I don't have a super important exam coming up on Monday. So cross-checking my schedules is really important with that aspect as well. Just like the previous section, there was only one Instagram question that fell into this category, and it was, how did I first find my job or internship during the school year and balance studying? So if you saw my video about last summer about what the 3 roles that I have served in as a student pharmacist intern, you will see that I have held a retail position, a hospital position, and now a clinic position. My retail position I actually had before starting school, so that doesn't really apply to this question, but my hospital internship I did actually apply for during school. So when it came to finding that position, I didn't put too much time into it because I was still in school and I didn't want to focus and stress myself out on finding a clinical position. So what I personally did was I set alerts on LinkedIn. So when you open LinkedIn, you go to the jobs section, you hit search jobs, and you'll type in pharmacy intern or pharmacist intern or student pharmacy internship, clinical student pharmacy internship, any kind of keyword that you're specifically looking for. Obviously, if you're interested in retail, then maybe type in community. If you're interested in AmCare, type in AmCare. If you're interested in industry, type in industry. And then I set my setting for Georgia. That's where I live. And essentially, I just would get alerts every single time a new position was uploaded. And if it had, if I took a liking to it, then I applied. If I didn't, then I just kind of like, went on about my day. But this also plays into using your Google Calendar and your planner for scheduling these shifts. So if you were to obtain this position, make sure that in your interview you ask, when am I required to work? Is it every other weekend? Is it every weekend? What are the shifts like? Stuff like that. And just get all of that information up front so that when you sit down after your interview and you're like, okay, they said it's every other weekend. Typically I have quizzes or exams every Monday. Can I do that? Stuff like that. So just make sure you're assessing all of the aspects when it comes into applying for a job and eventually getting that job. Make sure that you have the time to do it. Make sure that you are the student that can handle all of this, and it's perfectly fine if you're not the student that can handle all that. I released a video a year ago with Brown and RX where we talked about interning in school versus not interning in school, and I know several people who don't, and that is perfectly fine. So make sure that whatever you do choose to do, make sure that you can be organized enough and stay on top of your stuff, excel both in school and in your internship. Section 3, content creation. This is going to be a doozy. So for this one, I am going to start with the Instagram question that was given. It was basically, how are you creating content, posting constantly on social media with studying, working, resting, and just how do you do it all? So my response to that is that I'm actually not that consistent on Instagram, if you guys will notice. So I typically have 1 to 2 posts, Instagram posts a week. Sometimes I might do 3, depends on what's going on. Most of my involvement on Instagram is actually on my Instagram stories. So I think that is where a lot of people think that I'm super consistent. So my 1 to 2 posts, for example, the past 2 weeks I've had to wear my white coat on Wednesdays because of journal club. And that will be one of my posts for the week. The next post might be a cute study lapse. Or my consistency with posting, it does vary, but I am really good at kind of like still putting out quality content without having to do it every single day. So like my kind of 3 pillars of Instagram is 1, I do my research ahead of time for major holidays or major awareness days. So you'll notice that like I recently did the National African American HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. Why did I do that? Well, 1, I work in HIV/AIDS community. 2, I'm also an African American. 3, this is something that I care about as a pharmacy student because it's such an important specialty in pharmacy. So basically what I do is I knew it was going to be February 7th. That means the week of February 7th, I put together my picture, I put together my caption, I pulled all my research, I got all the links together, and by February 6th, I had everything I needed for this post already done. So on February 7th, all I had to do was hit post, add my hashtags, and answer comments. So that is a very important aspect of being a content creator and a grad school student, is doing your research and some of the work for important awareness days or important topics that you want to discuss beforehand. To post like journal club, which I don't necessarily create days before, what I do is to still have a good and thorough post, I will pull resources. So for journal club, for last week's journal club post, I had a cute picture of me in my white coat, but I also went into depth about what journal club is. So I pulled definitions not only from like my university, but also from the New England Journal of Medicine. I also pulled a study that talked about how important journal club is for pharmacy students on their rotations. And then I threw in specifically my journal club article that I went over and just some comments. And then I had a call to action, which was, if you have any tips for people that are new to journal club like myself, put them in the comments. So stuff like that is really important as well. And that gets a lot of engagement because for that 1 post that week, I not only educated people about what journal club is, I pulled some hard facts on it, but I also got really good tips from people who have been through journal club for longer than I have. Another part is going back into what I talked about when studying is time lapses. That is such an easy piece of content for people who are in the study tuber / tuddygram or the grad school blogger realm like myself. Everyone loves a great, cute time lapse of you at Starbucks with your almond milk cold brew and your study set, and you just grinding in the corner. That is such an easy piece of content, and those are things that I create pretty often, and then I just export that to iMovie, add a really nice lo-fi or chill hop song, and boom, I've got either a reel or a just normal video on my Instagram. And then number 3 is, it's kind of like an easy way out for me personally when it comes to Instagram, is that there are always things to take advantage of to create content, and not in a bad way. I'm talking about first days, first exams, compounding lab is something that I did last semester, and that always was a piece of content every single Thursday. And that was great because I always made something in compounding lab. I was wearing scrubs. It was super cool. I got to talk about what I made every single Thursday. A new subject. So we started cardio this semester. So on the first day of cardio, I talked about the 2 classes I was going to be involved in, cardio and pulmonary. Going on rotation. So when I had my 2-week IPPE over the summer, I got to post every single day for 2 weeks, and that produced a lot of content. Volunteering is a very good way to put out content. Not only are you showing what you're doing in the community, but it's a good way to educate what I'm doing in the community. And then things like immunizations and getting immunization certified. On Tuesday of this week, I posted that I got to immunize several people at a long-term care facility, and that's a piece of content. So I would say that my involvement is not always super consistent, but I do take advantage of things that I am doing like the day of, or things that pop up such as journal club, volunteering, and stuff like that. But I do also take the time to do my research for really important awareness days to myself, such as HIV awareness and things like that. That was the Instagram. Now we're on to YouTube. YouTube, I actually do admittedly put more time into because it actually is a very good creative outlet for me, specifically in regard to like stress and anxiety. So just spending 30 minutes a night editing a weekly vlog is such a good brain break for me that it's ridiculous. I'm able to just put school outside of my brain and just, you know, have 30 minutes to myself to play on my computer, listening to music, and like laughing at myself in different clips. So that's what's super important to me about YouTube. In regards to consistency, my goal is to at least post once a week. There of course are those YouTubers that post like 3 times a week, and that's not possible for me, y'all. I'm in grad school, I'm working, stuff like that. So YouTube is definitely something for me that I do once a week, and that makes me happy. So I typically do things, I typically vlog, and that is not something like right now, which is a sit down video. So for a sit down video, I have to plan that throughout my day, which is also why this got postponed by a week, because the day I planned to do it, I got assigned projects at work and I just could not do it that day. But yes, for sit down videos, I have to plan this out. I have to, you know, make sure the lighting is great outside, that I actually have an hour to sit down and talk, stuff like that. Meanwhile, vlogs are you coming along the day with me, which is not, you know, it doesn't really add any extra time on my day, except for if I take 5 minutes to chat with you guys. But it's not super time consuming in terms of the filming. The time consuming part is the editing, which takes about a total of 3 to 4 hours, but I do split that up into 30 minutes a night. And then on Fridays, I like to have a large editing session as like my treat to myself at the end of the week. I'll edit, and then my boyfriend will come over and we'll get like some food, and then we just like have a great night. And typically on Saturdays when I'm studying, the video is typically done, and I will set my laptop up on the side, and I will let that video upload, and then I work on my desktop doing all my study stuff. And typically when it's time for my study break, which is typically like every 3 hours, the video has finished uploading, I take 20 minutes to make a thumbnail, and then the rest of my 1 hour study break, I get to hang out with my boyfriend or my cat, go get some food and stuff, and then I am done with the content creation process, and then I am able to schedule the video to be uploaded the next day, and I'm done, and I start over the next week. And lastly, self-care. I really wanted to add this into it, mainly because I did get the most questions on Instagram for this one. Number one thing for me on self-care is, of course, I mentioned the editing YouTube videos, but also self-care for me is being able to work out and being able to cook, or being able to hang out with my family and my boyfriend, or just being able to like take a nap on my couch. So when it comes to working out, I am not necessarily trying to lose a specific amount of weight or anything like that. I actually work out for my mental health. I like to feel stronger, and I just feel a lot better throughout the day when I start my morning with, you know, a 40-minute HIIT workout, and I've like got my sweat on, all that stuff. I just feel so much better when I am active. So working out truly is a form of self-care for me. I typically work out in the morning because before, during my P1 year, I would work out after classes and it always felt like a chore to me. And so I wouldn't give it my all. I didn't really have a good workout. I would be like, oh my God, I have to work out. And that's just that I don't feel good after that. And I don't feel motivated to study after that. So getting up and working out the first thing in the morning is so important for me because I chose to do it and I feel better for the rest of the day. I feel more productive for the day, stuff like that. So self-care for me is typically involves working out and just like knowing how to take a step back when I'm overwhelmed, motivating, stuff like that. So some of the most important questions I got were one, tips for being productive but also taking time for my self-care and stress relief. Specifically, how do you stay motivated in the midst of all the stress? So as I mentioned earlier, my productivity is best in the morning. I am a morning person. I know this through and through, so I would never try to be productive like at 10 p.m. So for me, I like to be productive in the morning. And so my self-care routine also does come with this productivity. So if I get up at 6:30, getting a 7 a.m. workout in and making myself breakfast and making myself coffee or tea, that all right there, that's self-care for me. I am taking time for myself and being with myself before I sit down for the day and start my day in a productive. Also, if I know that I am just not feeling a workout that morning, that is okay. And I don't feel like making coffee at home, that's perfectly fine as well. A self-care for me will be going to Starbucks and sitting at my favorite table, ordering my favorite drink, and just taking time for myself there. And then I do some studying there and still be productive. And then when it comes to stress relief, I have mentioned this multiple times, but I am in therapy. So I do talk to my therapist when I just feel like I am just super overwhelmed. I also talk to my boyfriend. I talk to my mom. I talk to my dad. I'll take 30 minutes if I'm like feeling overwhelmed and be like, okay, I'm just gonna call someone. Let's go have a talk. Or I go for a walk. I live in a nice area where I can go walk around my campus, stuff like that. Or I will literally just sit on my couch and watch YouTube videos and just like disassociate myself from school. So those are my favorite self-care and stress relief tips. Obviously I've mentioned that those are particular to me. Also, editing is another good self-care and stress relief tip for me as well. Honestly, anything that just takes me away from feeling self-doubt, inferior, imposter syndrome, any of that, then I count as self-care. Even if it's like, let's go to TJ Maxx and Home Goods and just walk around, I count that as self-care. So I definitely fit that more into my schedule in this past 2 semesters than I did before. And just keep in mind, I know we care so much about grades, but lately I just truly believe that my mental health is 10 times more important than my grades, because without my mental stability, I can't make these good grades. One does not come without each other. I need them to be in sync. And that's for me personally. And that's something my therapist mentioned to me about how like I notice that when I'm not in a good place, I don't do as well as I should have. And there's a reason, because they correlate. I really hope that I have not extended this video past like an hour, but I really hope I answered all your questions very well and just further explained on how I am able to balance school, working, content creating, volunteering, and self-care. I would say the best and most important tip is finding what works best for you. If my routine of getting up at 6 a.m. does not work for you, please do not do it. Please, if you are more productive at nighttime, definitely stick to that. Definitely find what works out for you. I know for sure what works for me, that I cannot be productive after 10 p.m. unless I really, really needed to, unless it's like an emergency. Getting up at 6:30 and 7 and getting a workout in and being productive in the morning before classes is what works for me. Using my Google Calendar and my planner simultaneously works best for me. And just having a position where I am able to set my own schedule also works best for me. I love what I do on YouTube and I love what I do on Instagram. So like I definitely try to incorporate those as much as I can, but also without pushing myself past the point of being overwhelmed. So I really hope this helps you. Please let me know if there's any other questions that you have, or if there's any other like specific things that you have. Of course, my DMs are always open. But if you will, just go ahead and like and subscribe below. I really hope that this video was very helpful for you. Go ahead and give it a thumbs up if it helped you. I would love to know if this type of video helped you, so I can incorporate more sit-down videos alongside the Life and Pharmacy School vlogs. But go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification for next time I post. I love you so much, and I hope you have a great weekend.